We have been on the space station for about 45 days. We launched at the end of April, and we're supposed to go home at the end of October. So a little over 6 months will be our entire mission, and we're just about a month and a half into that. Over. You know, I have not seen a shooting star yet. Some of my colleagues have seen them, and I've seen pictures of the ones that they've seen, and they look pretty spectacular, of course, but very similar to the way they look on Earth, because we're not very much closer. We're only about 200 miles closer to them than you are. So when they're millions of miles away, we can't see a whole lot of difference than you can. Over. Our internet up here is pretty slow. We're way behind the capabilities on Earth. So we don't use the same satellites that you might on Earth for internet. But we have a different system that generally runs through these three major satellites around the world. And they are kind of controlled through the mission control centers around the world to give us some type of internet, even though it's pretty slow. Over. That's a great question, Grace. When I was a small child, that's when the men were landing on the moon for the very first times. And so that impression was left on me, a very good impression when I was a small child. So at that time, I wanted to be an astronaut, like most kids my age. And then I kept that dream going and potentially going anyway throughout my career, and eventually got selected to be an astronaut. Over. When we're on the space station like we are now, it's a very comfortable temperature. It's around 72 to 74 degrees. It's just like it would be in an air-conditioned office space or a school. So that's pretty nice. If you need to warm up, we have some sweaters or some long sleeve shirts you can put on. When we go outside for spacewalks, like we're going to do next week, now that's very cold. So when the sun is out, it's about 200 degrees Celsius, so very hot. And then when the sun goes away, when you're outside, it's minus 200. So we have these incredible spacesuits that protect us from those very extreme temperatures. Over. The very first modules on the space station were launched in 1998. So it's a little over 22, 23 years old now, which is pretty amazing. And we've been building it. It took about a decade, about 10 years to build this thing. And ever since 2011, it's been completed. We are going to add one more module here next month. The Russians are going to add a new module for them, but it's taken a lot of incredible scientists and engineers from around the world, not just the United States, to build this thing. We have a European module, we have 2 Japanese modules, we have several United States modules, and we have Russian modules. So it's a huge team effort. Over. No, it looks very different every time you look out, because we're going over a different place on planet Earth generally. So if you're looking down at Earth, the landscape always changes. Now sometimes you'll go over the same place, maybe once a day or once every month, and you might see the same thing again. But in general, it's always different. It's always beautiful and spectacular. So we always love looking out the windows. Over. No, we have not seen any space junk, thank goodness. If we do, it's usually a bad day if you happen to look out the window and see something. But we are protected pretty well at this altitude that we're at. And we do have a few things, maybe a handful of times a year, that might get close to the space station. And if that happens, there are people that are tracking that, and they will actually move the space station out of the way so they do not come in contact with us. So we have a lot of people looking out for our safety. Over. Thank you, Mrs. Shannon. Very good question. For one, you have to like math and science and engineering and those kind of things. Technical skills are very important. Personal skills are also important, so you got to be able to live with people in a very small area for a long period of time and not be annoyed or not be annoying to other people. But the biggest thing is education. Education is kind of the backbone of the whole thing for all of us astronauts, and you have to have a very strong education in math, science, or engineering, meaning you need to do well in school, even starting at your age. And for those of you that like math and science, I encourage you to pursue that route. And you may not be an astronaut, but you may be an incredible engineer that does something amazing for your country or amazing for the world. So continue to study hard and do well, and whatever you're passionate about, I advise you to pursue those dreams. Over. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day. It's been wonderful talking to you. Over.